This video is sponsored by Full Sail University, an entertainment, media, arts, and technology school. You can learn more about our sponsor at the end of this video. The Nintendo Gamecube. Everything about this little console screams underdog. It was underrated by buyers, getting outsold by the Xbox and the PS2. Its controller is underrated with its unique shapes and solid triggers. And of course, its games are underrated. Welcome back to my underrated Nintendo game series, where we take a look and uncover awesome titles that you might not have played before. While the qualities that make a game underrated vary from person to person, in general I tried to pick out games that either weren't reviewed especially well or didn't sell especially well. And as usual, I tried to stick with games that were exclusive to the platform I'm reviewing on as well. In the end, I hope you find at least one game that you end up trying and loving. Let's get on to the list. Chibi Robo Plug-in to Adventure. I know this game makes it onto almost every underrated GameCube games list, but for good reason. It's great, but tons of people haven't played it. I know plenty of people that recognize the Chibi Robo character, but I don't know a ton that have actually played the original GameCube title. We need to fix that. You play as the titular 10cm robot, and your goal is to collect happy points by helping the family of the home that you're in. The game has a very Toy Story-esque feel, where toys come to life when no one is around. Your goal is to manage your battery life while adventuring around and discovering the other toys, and while the graphical quality is nothing to write home on, the game's world and design are really charming. The story is surprisingly complex, full of love subplots between the toys, turmoil in the lives of the family that you're trying to help, and mystical forces that I won't spoil if you haven't played the game before. On the exterior, it's a pretty basic fetch quest game, but it's relaxing and endearing in a way that I can't really describe. Custom Robo. But Chibi Robo isn't the only game with Robo in the title today. If you've seen my Games Like Smash Bros video, you'd know how much I love Power Stone. And Custom Robo is very similar to that, which of course makes it another awesome 4-player beat-em-up. There's an absurd amount of parts, bodies, weapons, and other types of customizable pieces to collect, and the ridiculous range of attack options make this an amazing game to experiment with. Whether you want to try and carve through the campaign to unlock every spare part, or just mash together monstrosities and pick up and play multiplayer, Custom Robo is the kind of game that can take hundreds of hours of your time and still be fun. I also recommend the similar Gotcha Force title for the GameCube as well, if you end up enjoying this one. Battalion Wars and Bakutos Origins. If one thing has ever been true in my life, it's that I love card games. A lot. Card games have been a major part of my life, and I still do commentary for the Pokemon trading card game to this day. So when I read in my Nintendo Power that a breathtaking new card game RPG was making its way to the GameCube, it became a day one purchase for me, even though none of my friends had ever even heard of it. In Battalion Wars and its sequel, Origins, combat revolves around a slightly different style of card-based combat, where playing specific card combinations, such as straights and matches, increases the damage that you deal each turn. It's all about fast-paced thinking and smart deck construction for each individual character in your party. Some cards in your collection actually grow and transform over time, which was a fun exploration mechanic. If I had to knock something in this game, I'd say the story is pretty generic and the voice acting is pretty poor. But it had a unique system that keeps you on your toes, and that enough makes it an RPG that I come back to play from time to time. It's made by the same team that did the Xenoblade Chronicles games, and these games have the same level of detail and overall world polish that you would expect from them. Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. As someone that grew up alongside the Final Fantasy series, I was shocked when the main series moved directly to PlayStation consoles starting with Final Fantasy VII. And I was equally shocked when it turned out that the GameCube would finally be getting its own variant of Final Fantasy, after years of the franchise being away from Nintendo consoles. What we got in the end wasn't quite the story-rich Final Fantasy single player that many were used to, but instead a real-time cooperative RPG that could be played with up to 4 players. While this game is by far the best-selling title in today's list, I included it here because I feel like a lot of players are never able to experience the game's full potential. If you wanted a full 4-party raid in this game, you needed 4 GameCube to Game Boy Advance cables, alongside 4 separate Game Boy Advance units, which players would use for their own individual screens and menus that wouldn't clutter up the main screen. The irony is that today, a lot of people are looking to get rid of these old cables and consoles that they don't use anymore, so it's a bit easier to collect the full setup. It isn't the easiest to set up, but it really is an awesome adventure. The recent Final Fantasy Explorers for 3DS is another modern take on the co-op formula with online elements as well, but there's something magical about getting those 4 people in front of a TV to go on an adventure. Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. While the Fire Emblem series has evolved quite a bit with its recent 3DS titles and offerings, Path of Radiance is always the Fire Emblem title that I come back to when I want to relive some of my favorite Fire Emblem memories. At its core, it's your usual basic gameplay, with party building, permanent death, weapon advantages, and weapons being lost forever if used too many times. All with the story built around a lot of armies and a large geopolitical landscape. I really enjoy the cast in this game, especially Ike and his opening mercenary group. Characters are complex in their negotiations with each other without feeling like straight up tropes, and the story falls into distinct arcs that I've really come to appreciate over the years. If you've enjoyed the newest Fire Emblem series but haven't had a chance to play some of the older ones, give Path of Radiance a shot. It's one of my favorite Fire Emblem titles, and it has a solid direct sequel to the story on the Wii as well. Battalion Wars. The Advance Wars series is one of my all-time favorite strategy titles, and when I heard that an Advance Wars title was coming to the Gamecube, I wanted to make it an instant purchase. However, when I learned that the game rebranded and became a third-person real-time strategy title, I wasn't as interested anymore and I didn't buy it at release. Don't let that or the game's silly graphics fool you though. Battalion Wars is still an awesome game full of strategy, humor, and intelligent design. You swap between units on the fly, and you need to be smart about maximizing your army's strengths and weaknesses in every mission. The difficulty curve picks up quite a bit in the second half of the story, and it's definitely a game that kept me on my toes. Don't judge a book by its cover. Battalion Wars is a lot tougher and a lot more engaging than its kiddie visual style would have you think. Like Fire Emblem, this one also got a solid sequel on the Wii, adding naval combat as well. Kirby Air Ride. If I had to describe Kirby Air Ride in one word, it's fun. Pure, unadulterated fun in a simple package full of incredible depth. This Sakurai brainchild is a racing game with extremely basic gameplay at first glance. Everything in the game is controlled by a single button. Using your items, braking, boosting, grabbing abilities can all be done with A. I think players saw this one feature and immediately went, "That's for babies." But man, did they miss out. This game is a lot more than Mario Kart Kirby Edition. Aside from being a decent racer in its own right, this game is one of the greatest party game modes of all time, the City Trial. This mode alone is the reason to own this game. Players race around a set city map full of randomly generated stat boosts and events. Every single city trial visit is completely different, full of all kinds of stories and mayhem. As players race to find boosts, new vehicles, or rare legendary car pieces, they become more and more prepared for a final event that puts everyone's skills to the test. It is by far one of my favorite gameplay modes to enjoy with 4 people around a single screen, and I keep coming back to it with family and friends to this day. I could dig into all the modes, unlockable systems, and finer mechanics, but honestly, someone else out there already has. You can check out Sunder's review of this game in the description of this video. He's been helping out this channel for a while as the official video editor here, but it was his Kirby Air Ride video that first helped me discover his content in the first place. FZero GX. If Kirby is the racing game that's super casual on the spectrum, FZero GX is the full opposite. It is an absolutely grueling high-speed racer full of dozens of cars at once, while making one move in the wrong direction can send you flying off course, but despite the massive difficulty, this game always makes you feel like you're in control. The real highlight of this game is the new story mode, which puts Captain Falcon through the ringer of some of the hardest racing challenges I've ever had to compete. You are going to die again and again and again against some of the most aggressive driver AI and most disgusting race scenarios I've ever had to tackle. It's a downright rude game, but it's gorgeous, responsive, and to this day remains one of my favorite racing games to date. It has been 13 years since we've gotten a full console release of F-Zero, and man, are we overdue. God, 13 years? Are you kidding me? That's half of my life. One half of my life I was in F-Zero ecstasy, and the other half has been nothing but darkness. Speaking of darkness, we have Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. A wide majority of the games I picked up today are colorful and lighthearted, which makes sense. That's where Nintendo, and the Gamecube as a whole, really succeeds. But Eternal Darkness is none of that. One of very few titles to be published by Nintendo and still rated M, Eternal Darkness is an absolute trip. It's an ambitious story that spans tons of different playable characters across multiple centuries, but one thing is true throughout. This is a creepy game, made memorable by the game's sanity meter. As your sanity gets worse, the game throws all kinds of horrible things at you to freak you out. While mentioning any of these would be a major spoiler to what makes the game unique, I will say that you'll find a lot of different ways to be messed with, from jump scares to gore to breaking the fourth wall. It's crazy, and while the game hasn't aged super well graphically, it's nice to see a horror game that experimented with so many different ways to freak the player out. It's the kind of game I'd love to see a modern take on, but unfortunately all the plans for a modern sequel to this title have fallen apart over and over again, from Silicon Knights bankruptcy to Kickstarter failure to more. While a true sequel to this game might not ever come, the original stands out to me as one of the more surprising Nintendo-produced games I've ever played. Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg. Billy Hatcher is an adorable and unique 3D platformer from Sonic Team, and it's by far one of my favorite hidden gems on the system. The gameplay revolves around rolling on eggs, which gives you speed boosts, a projectile to attack with, and other new movement options. Your goal is to clear each stage while feeding and hatching your eggs before they break, which gives you things like power-ups and side characters to aid you. You never immediately know what's going to be inside of an egg, so the real joy comes through protecting and hatching each one. The split-screen multiplayer is also surprisingly good, with multi-tiered arenas and a lot of different gameplay modes. The camera can be a little wonky, and the game is simple, but Billy Hatcher is great. It definitely has that Sonic feel, and I'm talking that Sonic feel, not that Sonic feel. It unfortunately sold really poorly, but it's a really solid title, well worth your time. It's a good egg. Today's video was brought to you by Full Sail University, a different kind of school with a focus on entertainment, media, and of course, video games. Gaming is $1 billion industry, and Full Sail University can show you how to get started on the path to making tomorrow's next big game. Full Sail grads have worked on huge titles like Uncharted, Destiny, Far Cry, and more. They offer programs in game art, coding and game development, and even mobile gaming for those of you out there captivated by titles like Pokemon Go. Full Sail is built around getting you used to a professional environment, and students get a laptop with tools and programs that professionals use. If you're interested in learning more about the programs for gaming, entertainment, or anything else at Full Sail, you can go to fullsail.edu/jwits to learn more about the degrees that they offer. Thank you for watching today's video. You guys showed a ton of love for the first video in this series about the Nintendo DS, and I really hope you enjoy some of these recommendations as well. I'm pretty sure we're going to keep this segment as a regular thing from time to time, moving from platform to platform. I'll catch you guys next time with more Nintendo content.